Welcome to the 2015 data presentation, brought to you this year in a slightly different manner. This is Dr. Barbara A. Russell, Assistant Superintendent for the Perkiomen Valley School District, providing you with narration for the feature presentation that Dr. Clifford L. Rogers, Superintendent of Schools, directed. The presentation outline is quite comprehensive and intends to inform you of what you need to know as you share with others in our community the current successes and challenges in our school district, specifically related to student learning and achievement. We, as a leadership team, prefer to be transparent as we both share and discuss an analysis of the data, both the positive and the not-so-positive aspects associated with them. Moving forward, we will work in partnership with the Board of School Directors and school community to respond appropriately and improve the outcomes for our students. As we begin to share some of the successes of our schools and our students, there are several basic ones. Approximately 90% of our students are proficient or advanced on the state assessments as compared to the state average of 70%. 94% of parents responding to a survey administered earlier this year report they would recommend our school district to others, while 87% of students indicate they are satisfied with their education. According to the frequently accessed schooldigger.com website, Perkiomen Valley ranks 15th of all school districts in Pennsylvania and 29th according to the Pittsburgh Business Times. This year, the annual Daily Beast ranked Perkiomen Valley High School at number 626, a ranking in the top 700 of thousands of high schools across the country is considered remarkable. One might say we could be finished right here. These data are terrific and highlight in a concise manner the successes of our school district. But even though most data points indicate that things are going very well, there are aspects that require immediate attention, while others require us to plan for the long term. As we examine more closely the academic achievement of our students, we observe that upwards of 90% of our students are proficient or advanced on the PSSA and/or Keystone exams, which means that approximately 10% are not. This aspect of our data requires immediate attention. We are aiming for 100% of our students to demonstrate proficiency on these assessments. This is imperative for our secondary level students participating in the 3 mandatory Keystone exams due to the state's condition that students do so as part of their graduation requirements. On all state assessments, our students achieve well above the state average. As we begin to review subject-specific data, we observe that 90% or greater of our students are achieving in math, and PVSD students are outperforming neighboring school districts. As we transition to a discussion about reading, we continue with our district-wide focus upon students reading on or above grade level by 3rd grade. This is also emphasized at the state level and is a data point incorporated into the School Performance Profile score for elementary schools. We begin our intense focus upon early literacy in kindergarten and administer the Fontes and Pinnell local reading assessment to learn where our students are as readers and how they are progressing. This careful progress monitoring continues into 1st grade and throughout the elementary grades. As our students participate in the Reading PSSA for the first time in 3rd grade, they achieve well, and again, stronger than the majority of our neighboring districts. Our target is 100% of our 3rd grade students achieving proficiency or greater on this assessment, and we intervene in a variety of ways to support them growing and developing as readers. You'll hear more about this a bit later on in the presentation when our principals share some of the specific interventions employed in their schools. Strong reading achievement continues as our students progress through the grades, with 90% of our students in grades 4 through 8 outperforming students across the state and in neighboring districts. In addition to the summative assessment data and variety of research-based interventions employed in our schools to support developing our students as readers, we regularly, formatively assess our students and maintain an awareness of their progress. As we look to our high school, the 2014 SPP was one of the highest in Montgomery County, and SAT scores continue to demonstrate stronger performance than others across the state as well as the nation. A greater number of our high school students are participating in the ACT exam as they consider their plans post-PV, and they also outperform others across the state. The data points we monitor are not only connected to student achievement, but also their engagement in school through participation in extracurricular activities. While in middle school, fewer than 10% of our students opt out of an activity. By the time our students are graduating from high school, greater than 50% of them have participated in one or more extracurricular activity. From the academic and active environment of Perkiomen Valley High School, we know that approximately 88% of our graduates are continuing their education, while others are opting to enlist in the military or seek employment. We desire to prepare all of our students to secure their first choice upon graduation, regardless of what it is they would like to do. As our students progress through the grades in our schools, we monitor their achievement results as we have just reviewed, and we monitor their academic growth using the state's PVSD system. All of our students must demonstrate academic growth at some level from one year to the next. The state employs the PVSD analysis system to help schools to know whether their students are growing academically and affords the public access to their website. When the color green appears, it represents the expected level of academic growth, while blue indicates growth that exceeds the expected levels. Red represents results that fall below. Publicly, one can actually retrieve data on the PVSD website, identifying both achievement and growth measures, and how the results compare PV students to others in the county. We recognize from the PVSD data that our 6th grade students are not demonstrating the academic growth expected, and we must respond with plans to ameliorate these results. More to come on this later in the production. As part of the introduction earlier in this presentation, we briefly shared how positive the survey results were when received earlier this school year. An analysis of the open-ended responses indicates the words that are emphasized and occurring more frequently in the responses by our stakeholders. Overall, client satisfaction is positive and rankings high, and both parents and students indicate feeling good about the experiences offered by the district. Let's turn our attention to the school report card and School Performance Profile, or SPP, scores. You can review the School Performance Profile scores for any district in Pennsylvania by accessing the website www.paschoolperformance.org. There are many different data comprising the SPP score, identifying the overall profile and school performance. Ideally, the SPP helps to develop a culture that embraces transparency and using data as a core part of our work. This requires trust in the data and trust in leadership that the work is to improve what happens for students. It also requires professional development for staff to assist them in understanding what the data mean and how they should respond. In an ongoing manner, we need to compare ourselves to ourselves over time and establish clear and measurable goals focused upon what happens for students as a result of what we do. We have learned from the variety of summative data gathered and included in this presentation. We recognize the need to pay attention to our students' transition to middle school, the achievement of students with an IEP, and those of the historically underperforming groups, as well as the necessary requirements they must fulfill for graduation. We're also concentrating on assisting the high-performance students growing academically according to the state's PVSD system. We are redesigning high school biology and earth systems as we prepare students for the biology Keystone exam, and we're targeting writing district-wide K-12. For the next several minutes, you will hear from our principals as they provide you with an example, a story, about something they have learned from the data and are addressing in their school. Each has zeroed in on a different challenge, illustrating the breadth and depth of considerations across levels. We begin with Mr. Sean Burke, Red House principal of the high school.
Good evening. On behalf of the high school team, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about data. If you take a look at our numbers, you'll notice that we've made steady gains in all areas, specifically biology, but we must continue to work in biology to get all students to proficiency prior to graduation. After 2012 and 2013, the biology team met and decided to work on literacy. We decided to implement keystone-type questions, focus on vocabulary, and use the Penn Literacy Network to further collaborate and work with literacy in the classroom. After 2013 and 14, we decided to move environmental science eligible content to the 9th grade curriculum. We decided to implement inquiry-based labs to cultivate creative problem solvers and higher level thinkers, and continue this work on literacy and writing in the science curriculum. Blake Mitchell came to us in 2012, coincidentally when we first started to work on improving biology instruction. To quote Blake, he states, in his first year, the biology team concentrated on an increased focus on content vocabulary and on including keystone-style questions on assessments. This year, Blake is participating in a Penn Literacy Network course where he is learning how to use close reading strategies and also implement Collins Level 1 and Level 2 writing opportunities for his students in the classroom. Blake states that to me, students need to be able to read and extract important content from questions on the keystones. Then they have to know how to respond in writing to show that they understand. Additionally, Blake, along with other biology team members, are using inquiry-based labs so students can become better problem solvers through hands-on engagement.
Mr. Burke spoke about improving the learning experiences of our students in biology while integrating reading and writing strategies to support their understanding. We turn now to Dr. Clune, principal of Middle School East, and the challenge of preparing all algebra students for the Algebra 1 Keystone exam.
Greetings, this is Dr. Seamus Clune, and I am the principal at Perkiomen Valley Middle School East, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about proficiency in the Keystone 1 Algebra exam. And as all of you know, the Algebra 1 Keystone exam is actually an end-of-the-year, end-of-course exam that is normally taken at the high school. There's actually 3 Keystone exams that are currently required for graduation. But because of the advancement of our math students here at Middle School East, we actually have a significant number of students that are actually taking that exam while they're still here in middle school. And so we wanted to explore how we're going to use data to actually help more students be prepared and proficient on that high school graduation requirement. And what we noticed in 2014 was that we actually identified a small number of students who were not being successful. And by that, 2 measures were actually helping us identify success. The vast majority of students in 7th grade last year not only were proficient, almost 90%, but they actually demonstrated exceeding growth for students that were proficient in advanced on the PSSA exam. However, for those students that were basic or below basic on the PSSA math exam, we noticed that their growth was actually moderate. It was a normal growth curve. They made as much growth would be expected in a year. Obviously, to close that gap, we'd like to exceed. So moving into 8th grade, where they're going to be taking algebra, we actually thought of some ways to address our concerns that we had, which included not only that they were being unsuccessful on the math PSSA, but also that the teachers were sharing students were not feeling confident, and they also were not feeling that they don't have a lot of success in math. So if we look here, we developed a new course called Algebra 1A, and it's actually a 2-year course. So it provides students with a little bit more time to actually work on those particular skills. For all of the students that were identified last year through our data of being appropriate for this class, we put them all in a first period class. We actually brought in 3 teachers, not only period class, we actually brought in 3 teachers, not only a math teacher that we cross-teamed them into that class first thing in the morning, but we also added an emotional support teacher and a learning support teacher because the class included a significant number of students that were special education students. Also, we added in an aide into the class who's also math certified. And this particular class focused in on working on the skills that students would need to be successful on the Algebra Keystone exam at the end of their 9th grade year. So they have 2 years to do this. This graph over here is actually showing you CDTs for the Algebra, all right, classroom diagnostic test. And it actually, between September and January, where the students have taken it, we're actually seeing some significant growth in student scores, progressing toward where we want them to be at the end of their 9th grade year, so that they're all going to be in the green band to pass the Algebra Keystone exam. The other thing that we did was we also added an additional math remediation course called Math Plus. All students actually take that. Some students, based on their schedule, can take it every day. Other students take it two times out of a 6-day cycle, but all of them are receiving additional math remediation. And all teachers that are involved in providing math instruction and math remediation for these students, these particular identified students, those teachers actually meet regularly. We also meet as a team and we review the data and we make sure that we're closing any gaps. If you just from the classroom, which kind of gives you a sense, the students actually are divided up multiple times. Different teachers are working with groups of students, individual students, and the class itself moves really well in terms of separating the students, redividing them, looking at where their individual skill gaps lie, and being able to focus on hitting the appropriate skills that students need to be successful on the Algebra 1 Keystone in 9th grade. And that's our presentation on how we're using data to improve proficiency on the Algebra 1 Keystone. Thank you so much for your time.
Next up, Mrs. Boyd, principal at Middle School West, who takes us deeper into the SPP score and individual student data, followed by teacher response in this building.
Good afternoon. The first slide represents how we are utilizing data at PV Middle School West to target instruction for our students. The snapshot on the left side of the screen is our School Performance Profile, or SPP. And the two photographs on the right side of the screen are examples of how we've organized the data from the SPP to reflect each student, their strengths and needs, and then to drive our conversations with teachers as to how we can respond to this data and guide instruction in the classroom as we move through the school year. The top right picture is the spreadsheet we created this year, and it contains past PSSA scores for each student from 3rd grade to the present year, along with benchmark scores for this school year of the assessments that we're using to help monitor progress as we move through the school year. The bottom photograph is also representative of data in another way. It comes from the SPP information, and it represents each student and his or her performance on the 13-14 PSSA assessments. The color codes represent the performance categories for our students. The pink cards indicate students that performed in the below basic range. The yellow cards represent students that performed at the basic level. The green cards represent our students that were proficient, while the blue cards represent our students that demonstrated advanced scores on the PSSAs last year. These data points together help guide our teachers in terms of what they do instructionally in the classrooms this year. As we move into the second slide, we're going to take a look at two teachers and how they work with the data to respond and support student needs. Let's move to the next slide. Here we see Mr. Jim Farrington, our 8th grade mathematics teacher, and he teaches Algebra 1 and geometry students. We also see Mrs. Crystal Glennon, who is our instructional support teacher, assisting Mr. Farrington in the classroom. This class is taking place during the last period of the school day, and Mr. Farrington utilized the data from the spreadsheet and the data wall that we showed in the first screen, along with his observations in the classroom and his classroom assessments to identify strengths and needs of his students. And here we have an example of a group of students that had a particular need that he needed to work with them and provide some additional support. So in the first photograph, we can see Mrs. Glennon circulating amongst the students, looking over their shoulders to see if they are completing the task accurately and appropriately, while we have Mr. Farrington sitting at a table working one-on-one with a student. And then in the second photograph, we can see that both teachers have moved to another section of the classroom to check in on students and see how they're performing. So again, this is just one example of some of the things that take place at PV Middle School West as we respond to the data to support student achievement and growth.
As we transition our storytelling to the elementary level, we visit with Mrs. Amy Sachs, principal at Evergreen Elementary. Mrs. Sachs shares the story of a developing young reader and some of the interventions employed to support her growth.
Hi, my name is Amy Sachs and I am the principal of Evergreen Elementary School. I would like to take a few minutes to share with you what we do as an Evergreen team to use data and drill down to the individual student and learn about them and then respond to what we learn about them as an individual learner. In order for me to provide you and frame this process that we go through as a school, I'm using an example of a student who came to us January of 2014, a year from this month. This child came to us as a second grader and in January entered Evergreen Elementary School as a level B, which is a kindergarten level. So entering as a second grader, coming in at a kindergarten reading level. So we had to really get to know her and put the proper supports in place and use the resources to really be able to support her and help her make the growth she needed as a second grade student. As you can see, some of the supports that we immediately put in place was her initial placement into Evergreen, which is a co-taught second grade classroom. The co-taught classroom is a huge part of the programming at Evergreen and actually consists of a special education teacher and a regular education teacher working together to really make smaller numbers in a classroom and provide supports to our students. In addition to the co-taught classroom environment, we also provided this student with the IE time, which is a 30-minute intervention enrichment block that is scheduled into our day as part of our RTI programming and framework to really support our students, meeting them at their level and then growing them. So the IE time, in addition then to the co-teaching, was a great start, but not enough. We actually put in place some one-on-one tutoring in both reading and math, as well as morning tutoring from 8 to 8:30, 2 times a week, also provided by one of our certified paraprofessionals, and the Project Silver support, which are folks who come into our building and really provide some extra reading time with our students. So as you can see, the amazing part about these intensive interventions for this student is that we were able to grow this child almost a full year's academic growth in just 6 months. So that it really is an accomplishment for all the work that she put in to be able to get that far, but all the resources that were used to provide those interventions for her. Our work obviously is not done. She is still not performing at a third grade level now that she is in third grade 2014-2015 school year. So we had to continue to really look to remediate and support her as she moved into third grade. So you can see here that she entered third grade in September of 2014 as a level G and has now in January a level J, the beginning of second grade. The supports that we were able to provide her this school year in third grade were, again, the co-taught classroom, the special education teacher, and the regular education teacher working in unison, really breaking down those numbers in the classroom, really making the instructional opportunity more of an intimate one, and really getting down to groups of students meeting them at their level and growing them forward. So that's one support that we continued with. Same with the ID time, the intervention enrichment time, that 30-minute block of time that we provide for all students each and every day. We continued with the building aid support, both one-on-one in math and reading. However, we did pull back the AM tutoring, the 8 to 8:30 block, because we did make such growth, but still support this child in math mornings, which occurs again twice a week throughout October. The first series runs from October through January. We reassess with our data meetings in January, and then we regroup January through the end of March up to PSSAs, so that we can make sure that these children are receiving some extra study time and really drill down to the areas and the skills that they need to improve. I'd like you to note at the bottom right-hand corner of the slide is the growth of an average student from September of 2014 to January 2015. So you can see that the student that I've highlighted for you as an example, to talk about resources and those interventions, you can see that her data did a little bit of a dip at the beginning of September, but we were able to get her right back on track and continue growing forward. So thank you for letting me take a moment to share with you some of the great things that we're able to provide as a school district for our students, and I hope that we can continue to do so. So thank you.
Our next elementary school visit is to Schwenksville and Mrs. Barb Powers.
Hi, Barb Powers speaking to you from Schwenksville Elementary. And we did notice in 2014 a drop in our SPP scores. So the staff here at Schwenksville came together and looked to make changes in areas where data indicated we needed to make changes. We looked at science, we looked at reading, we looked at math, and we looked at growth. And we understand that we can't do it all overnight, but we have focused our efforts on some bigger ideas. For example, in reading, our third grade reading scores went down, and we were looking to make some changes for the future. So we know that making third grade on-level readers doesn't happen overnight. We have to start in kindergarten, first and second grade. We have to invest in our future, and that's what we did. So we looked to our research, and some of the things that we know about learning to read has to do with the contact with the teacher and the amount of reading we do at our level. So last year, in 2013, our first grade readers grew 2.6 levels in the Fontes and Pinnell system. Last year, our first grade readers in January actually had 36% of our students below grade level, 49% on level, and 15% above level. In looking at our first grade data from last year, we knew we had to make some very specific changes, so we did. We determined to use our available resources and decrease class size slightly. We've been able to do that this year, and the difference in data is nothing short of remarkable. Last year, we had 36% of our children reading below grade level at the January midpoint time. This year, because we've been able to make some of those changes, only 15% of those children are reading below grade level. We've been able to decrease class size, we've been able to utilize classroom aids, and we've been able to target instruction specific to their needs. Look at our pie charts from the January data in first grade last year to the January data for first grade this year. You can clearly see that the size of the red or the pink portion has decreased by more than half. We attribute this to class sizes, clever use of our classroom aids, targeted skill instruction during our daily intervention or extension time, and of course the purchase of wonders. If you move to our last slide, the case of Jane and John, In addition to highlighting first grade reading and really targeting the instruction for all of our children, I want to share with you some data from our children who are reading above grade level. We had several children come into first grade reading at a third grade level. We wanted to address their needs as well as all the children who were reading below and on grade level. And we did that through daily instruction during our intervention extension time. That group of children increased their reading level to a 5th grade instructional level. We're responding to all of our data in that way, and we're seeing similar results in each grade level. And we're excited for our future at Schwenksville. Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Ryan Stansemarsh, principal at Skipback Elementary, who shares his story about growing advanced learners.
Good evening, Perkiomen Valley School Board Directors. Ryan Stansemarsh here, principal at Skipback Elementary School. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you our data and the work that we're doing around data, and more specifically student growth and teacher-specific data regarding student growth here at Skipback Elementary School. Our students traditionally perform or achieve at a high level on the PSSA. However, with such a wide range of advancement in the PSSA, we've been forced to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be advanced on the PSSA? And what does this mean for our student groupings and our overall program when we see the need to grow our students at the top? While we want to grow students across all areas of achievement, we also need to maintain our focus and attention on those few students at Skipback who are still struggling to meet the basic expectations as expressed on their performance on the Pennsylvania State Assessment. So that balance is a real effort for us this year and moving forward at Skipback as we work with students across all achievement levels in an effort to grow them completely. So in the next few slides, I will show you the range of advancement at the top end and what our students look like from a data standpoint, and then share with you our responses and our planning around this need to grow. To better illustrate the challenge of growing students across all spectrums of achievement, all ranges of achievement, I want to share with you one report that we use at Skipback. This report shows students in a 5th grade teacher's classroom this year, all the students in that teacher's classroom, their performance, whether it was proficient or advanced on the 3rd grade reading PSSA, and then their performance, whether it was proficient or advanced on the 4th grade PSSA, and then these lines represent students who moved from proficient to advanced, and those students who moved from advanced to proficient. Most importantly on this slide, you can see that there is a large number of advanced students who maintained a high level of advancement both their 3rd and 4th grade year on the PSSA. With a high range of advancement at the top end of the PSSA, this presents us with a unique and exciting challenge at Skipback in how do we take these students that are already achieving at the top end and grow them even further within our program. Our core program and student classroom assignments are the basis for supporting students with their academic growth each year. Further, we have looked to stretch our very top end students with low cost and no cost resources like Newsella, an online nonfiction news-based program which levels each article, and we can stretch students as far as we wish in the readability and reading level of each article. Further, we work to leverage our staff, our gifted and instructional paraprofessionals to best utilize them in delivering our program for students. We are purposeful of our use of data at Skipback as we regularly meet to discuss student performance and make plans for students as small groups and individuals in an effort to support their academic achievement and growth throughout the year. This comes in the form of team meetings, which includes a reading specialist, IST teacher, administration, and classroom teachers, and in the form of individual teacher meetings with administration. Again, we focus on individual students, their needs, and work to make plans for them. All of this is done while focusing on the whole child. We believe in the academic, social, and emotional growth.
Thank you
of
for
each
the opportunity
student.
to present regarding Skipback's growth data for students. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you just a bit of the things that we're working on at Skipback Elementary School this year. While there's not the opportunity to take questions in this format, certainly I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the information presented this evening. Thanks again, and have a wonderful evening.
Our final school story is told to us by Mr. David DeAndrea, principal at South Elementary. Mr. DeAndrea highlights the work of staff and students in the area of writing.
Hello, I'm Dave DeAndrea, the principal of South Elementary. I appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about one area that South's staff and students have been working very hard to improve in over the course of our current school year. When South received its 2013-2014 SPP data, it became clear immediately that we really need to focus our collective efforts to improve writing instruction at South. Last year's 5th grade class scored 58% proficient or advanced in writing and scored well below expected growth measures in writing as a group. With this year's PSSA is assessing 3rd and 4th grade in writing for the first time, we knew we had to address the issue in kindergarten through 5th grade. From this realization, our school theme for the year was born. On our path to building something new, we are building great readers and writers at South. South's data story focuses on a 3rd grader whose improvement in writing this year is the result of our current efforts to teach writing effectively. Our 3rd grader pictured here is holding 2 writing samples. In his right hand is an early writing assignment from September. If you were to read the sample, you would find sentences that start without capital letters and end without periods, numerous fragments, weak content development, and a response that lacks any textual evidence to support. In his left hand, he holds a writing sample from December that is miles ahead of his early effort. We find complete sentences that end in periods, proficient content development, and evidence of much greater effort overall. His growth is a result of 3 direct efforts at South. First, teachers are engaging students in daily writing 1 hour every day across the curriculum. Second, we implemented a framework for writing known as the 6 traits that defines in a common language what good writing looks like across grade levels. And third, we are making an effort to celebrate the success and efforts of our student writers. As we look ahead in our efforts to move north at South, we have a long way to go. In order to be truly effective, there's an ongoing focus on professional development. We believe that our teachers need time and resources to collaborate, much more so than they have now, where they're largely teaching in isolation. We want to provide our teachers time and resources to discuss their students' work, to compare and to align and calibrate their thinking regarding curriculum and assessment. The research supports when teachers are working together in this way and collaborating, there is a large increase in student achievement. And we hope that through these continued efforts, we continue to have a positive impact on the achievement and growth of all of our students. Thank you for your time.
At this point in our presentation, I hope you have a greater understanding of the data we receive and analyze as we lead our students and schools in learning. Each school's story, as told by the principal, provided a specific example of what data analysis and response can look like and how the actions benefit our students. We turn now to district-level considerations that include revisiting curriculum and reflecting upon our practice to continually improve what we do in classrooms and what happens for students. Our efforts are to increase student engagement and facilitate anywhere, anytime learning. The assessments we administer help us to know how our students are progressing towards the expected learning, and the identified targets on this assessment schedule represent progress monitoring checkpoints. We not only monitor the progress of our students, but also the growth of our teachers. Under Act 82, 2012, and the new Teacher Principal Evaluation System, our professional staff must pay attention to what they do in their classrooms and/or schools, and how what they do affects the academic achievement and growth of our students. Conversations about the details of each piece of the pie comprising our teachers' evaluations are ongoing. At the district level, we are also working on improving learning experiences in middle-level grades, at increasing STEM opportunities, and digital literacy and cyber civility. We are personalizing learning along with differentiating instruction and attempting to increase the flexibility our students have as they develop a schedule in our high school. We have adopted an initiative to ensure all students feel included, safe, and welcome in their school community, and this year, our learning experiences include brain breaks or brain energizers as we make every effort to engage all students. There are challenges as we think about all that we would like to do for our students, and they appear here. As we continue our push towards excellence, we must become the school of choice for our residents. There is a cost to the district when a student chooses to pursue another school option. If we are to maintain our reputation of excellence and the value associated with living in this school district, we must do everything we can to create a positive and fulfilling school experience for our students that helps us to realize the mission of this school district. As always, Dr. Rogers and I welcome questions, comments, and/or concerns, and I thank you for viewing this production.